Are we live?
Yeah, we are on YouTube.
Okay.
Not checking Twitter.
Okay. We are live on YouTube, Twitch. We are live on Twitch. Check Twitter.
Okay,
We are live on Twitter.
great.
Okay. Okay. Give me a second. Oh, it works. Periscope still works. Hey, folks.
Okay,
Happy to see everybody here once again. Um, so today we are here for another episode of our live streams, our monthly live streams. I mean, is it bi-monthly?
whenever we feel like it.
Okay. Yeah, whenever we feel like it much live streams. So today we are going to be doing like a little bit of something with CI/CD. So we are going to be exploring CI/CD, Cloudfront popular CI/CD tools like Travis, CircleCI, Tekton, and Jenkins. And this is a very exciting one for me because I know we put a lot of work into figuring out how to work, get Cloud Foundry to work with various CI/CD tools, and it was really easy. But it was, I mean, we're still going to give ourselves some credit. Um, so it took a couple of while, and but we're here today for this live stream. So as usual, my name is Shedrack Akintayo. I'm a developer advocate at the Cloud Foundry Foundation, where we are trying to make sure that the whole world can experience the awesome developer experience for that Cloud Foundry brings, specifically to Kubernetes. With me today is my genius colleague,
Uh,
Ram. Ram, do you want to say something about yourself, or you're trying to be too humble?
I have tried, it has never worked. So,
Yeah, yeah.
thanks everyone for joining us from the comfort of your desks today. My name is Ram. I am based out of India, and I am also a developer advocate at the Cloud Foundry Foundation. So, Shadrach and I mostly spend our days in exploring cool ways in which Cloud Foundry can work for you. And then we spend the rest of our week or month in sharing that information with everybody else who is basically interested in listening. We blog often on a Medium page, so do check that out when you can. Cloudfoundry.org is also home to a bunch of tutorials that we wrote. We run the stream pretty frequently, so we try to target like 2 streams a month. A lot of the content that we've streamed so far is available and archived on our YouTube channel. So that's
No, kids are always really fun. I mean, we're all working from home, so we can all relate to being disturbed once in a while when doing video Zoom calls and live streams, etc. So this is the usual episode. I mean,
yeah,
we can
once
all
in a while
relate.
is fine, but it's once where once in a while too frequently now. So, but anyhow, sorry for the interruption. Kids are and yeah, like I was saying, all of the streams that we've done so far are available archived on YouTube. So do check that out. So it's YouTube, Cloud Foundry Foundation. You can just find the channel using Cloud Foundry Foundation, and it's um, it's going to be useful no matter if you're just starting off with like Kubernetes or or you want to start off with Cloud Foundry, and then you're just exploring ways in which to um, do more with what you have. So lots of information there. Do check it out when you have the time.
Oh, cool. Yeah. So to kick things off, we are just going to like give, I don't know, Ram, can you just give us a brief summary of what this entire live stream is about? I mean, I've said it, but I mean a more broad but summarized version of it would be good.
Sure, happy to do that. So here's the deal. So even about 10, 12, even 15 years ago, CI/CD was fairly important for a lot of teams. So everybody was using it. Everybody was depending on CI/CD in order to make software deployments smoother, make software deployments work in a more efficient way, and generally get code out to production easily. Um, a lot of things have changed along the way since the past 12, 13, 15 years. So, first we had CI CD pipelines that basically generated binaries, and those were just deployed to some remote staging instances somewhere, typically VMs. Eventually, that sort of changed when Docker came along. CI/CD sort of morphed and transformed and said, "Hey, instead of generating these binaries and throwing that on VMs, you can now create containers and generate containers out of your source essentially, and deploy them to container runtimes instead of going the create a binary, throw it on a VM route." So when Docker started to become popular, um, all of the CI/CD tools, sort of evolved into saying, "Hey, we need to have support for Docker, and we need to do Docker support." And Docker became like a first-class citizen in all of these CI/CD tools that were being made. Then with Kubernetes coming into the picture, all of the CI/CD tools are now, I wouldn't say pivoting, but all of the CI/CD tools are becoming cloud native and going the Kubernetes-ish way. So deployments have to deploy. I mean, immutable artifacts can still remain containers, but instead of being deployed directly to a container runtime somewhere, they're being deployed to the container runtime within the Kubernetes environment itself. So deploying these containers can take two forms. You can generate containers and deploy the containers directly from the VM on which you build them, or you could take these containers, throw them onto like a container registry somewhere, and then have the deployment happen from that container registry. Irrespective of what you do, the fundamental pieces are: you have source code, you have your container build system somewhere, and then you have your container runtime that is running remotely, operating remotely, to which these containers will get pushed. So the evolution that has happened so far has simplified a few things, but have made a few things more complex. Um, the whole stream today has one fundamental goal, which is: how can you allow developers and software engineering teams? Now, these can be small teams in a startup, these could be enterprise grade teams at like Fortune 500, 150, what have you. Enterprise grade teams that are operating on like a massive software footprint. It doesn't matter. What matters is you get the sophistication of being able to deploy to Kubernetes, but you enable that sophistication without having to jump through the hoops of, okay, maintain YAML files and have all of these complicated container registries somewhere, and uh, you know do your entire deployment pipeline also in YAML, write Docker files and maintain those somewhere, and make sure that all of these follow security and compliance and all of these best practices. So the answer to how can I have modern infrastructure and modern practices to operate my software, along with having a simplified means to do that kind of development and deployment, is what we're going to provide during the course of this stream. Obviously, there's a Cloud Foundry component involved. No surprises there.
Of course, of course.
But any questions so far? Hopefully that was clear. So for those watching, if you have any questions, just feel free to drop a word or two in the YouTube stream, or just tag at Cloud Foundry on Twitter, and just throw your questions in there. I'm more than happy to pick up on those and answer them.
Yeah. So yeah, so CICD is like a really, really interesting topic worldwide. I mean, it helps monitors it basically increases the quality of software development teams. It increases the delivery, and also the integration of these various software. The most interesting part of this is that there's the CD Foundation. So the CD Foundation is it's a project, it's a foundation under the Linux Foundation, if I'm not mistaken, that handles everything CI/CD. So you can find them on cd.foundation, if I'm not wrong, right? Yeah, the website.
CD.foundation is the
Yeah,
website.
CD Foundation is it's a foundation under the Linux Foundation that handles most things called CI/CD, continuous delivery and continuous integration, etc. So if you're really, really big on open source CI/CD, you should check out the CD Foundation. It's really, really there's a lot of like interesting projects under the CD Foundation. Now so we're just going to go into the demos real quick. I mean, not to waste anybody's time. We don't want to take too much time. So I'll go first. I'm going to show you how you can write a simple Travis config that can basically deploy your application whenever you need it, whenever you make a push to your GitHub repo or your Bitbucket repo. But for the purposes of this tutorial, I'll be using GitHub. So I have a project hosted on GitHub that I would want to be deployed whenever I push to the master branch. So basically, I have a CF4K, that's Cloudfront for Kubernetes cluster or instance running on the Google Kubernetes engine cluster on Google Cloud. So I have that set up already. Let me share my screen real quick. So just increase my, okay. So as you can see, I have this cluster running on Google Cloud. And if I should do, so I currently have this Cloudfront CLI. So with this way, I would be able to interact with all my Cloudfront instances and do anything Cloudfront related. So when I do CF login, so this basically brings out the API endpoint that I'm connected to. And because this is an IP, it's basically an IP address. It is not secure. So we're using it just because of demo purposes. Please do not use an insecure IP in production. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it's more about adding SSL certificates. So we don't add one to our demo clusters. But obviously, if you intend to use this in production, and when you do, by all means, you will be using SSL certs. So that's a non-issue.
Yeah, so I'm just going to log into my organization and also my space. As you can see, we have two spaces. There's a space for RAM and there's a space for myself. And it could be anything from dev to staging to production, basically where you host your applications, the various applications generally. So I'm just going to like move into mine. So I'm logged in already. Currently, I'm logged in already. As you can see, I'm connected to this particular API endpoint where my Cloud Foundry instance is running. Now, this is like the interesting part. This is like just the basic of Cloud Foundry generally, how to use the Cloud Foundry CLI. Now, I'm just going to share my screen real quick. Change. Okay. So this is my Chrome tab, and I have my project, this particular project, hosted on GitHub, and it's basically an exchange rate single page application with vanilla JavaScript and Node.js. And I got it from a tutorial online by Michael. So basically, it's a Southside Pont author. So I was taking a tutorial from him, and I built it from his tutorial. So first things first is you have to authenticate your GitHub account with Travis. So I currently have Travis already authenticated with my GitHub account, but I would it's a very simple process. All you just have to do is go to travisci.com, click on login, and boom, you'll be showed this. So this is the dashboard. So this is the dashboard. Basically, it shows all your applications that are currently connected to Travis, and on how you can, and just basically shows it. So how to connect your, you can always find how to connect your GitHub, particular GitHub repo that you need to Travis. You can always find it on the Travis documentation. So it's a really, really easy thing to do. So I already have this particular project connected with my Travis, and it's the last test that the last push I made was successfully passed. So when we go into it, we would see that, of course, we have our application already deployed to Cloud Foundry. Now, how does this work? So how this works generally is a simple travis.travis.yml file. So I'm going to run it through quick just to show how it works. So now, um, language generic here, this particular portion is we are basically telling Travis that okay, we do not want any language specific processes to run whenever we make a push to Travis. So we do not want it to run a test, specific language test. We don't want it to do any process generally that has been defined for specific languages. We just want it to basically deploy application to Cloud Foundry. Now, if you have a bunch of tests that you need to run, I mean, you can always just put the name of the language, could be Node.js, could be Go, put the test script for it to be able to detect the test and continue to your deployments basically. So I do not have any tests running, so I just decided to put generic and it deploys. Now, before deploy is basically a script or anything that would run before the actual deployment started. Now, Cloud Foundry is a first class citizen on Travis CI deployment options. First class citizen in the sense that there's active support for Cloud Foundry, so you can easily deploy your applications to Cloud Foundry on Travis without going through any hacky phase or doing anything. Just this line, these starting lines actually can deploy your application to Cloud Foundry. Now, the next is to write the deploy script. Basically, just specify deploy provider Cloud Foundry. So they have various providers ranging from AWS to DigitalOcean to IBM Bluemix, etc. They have various providers. You can check the official Travis documentation to see the amount of providers that they have. And so Edge True, I placed Edge True here because the version of the DPL, so DPL is the tool that Travis uses to deploy applications generally to various providers. So when you specify Edge True, you're opting into the version 2 of the latest version of DPL, which is only very important because it seems like the version 1 has a bunch of bugs that have been yet to fix. So they are advised to opt into the second version. Now, username, of course, is the Cloud Foundry instance username, the one I specified when I was logging into my terminal the other time. So admin, then the password, of course, password has to be encrypted. You cannot just leave passwords lying around in your profile. So password is basically an environmental variable that is set in Travis. I would show you how to set environmental variables in Travis going forward. So password is CF password, and the API is the API endpoint I'm supposed to connect to. Like Ram said, we don't use SSL in our API endpoint, so we just use the flag that skip SSL validation. So Cloud Foundry can easily recognize that, okay, we do not need to verify, check this particular API endpoint for SSL. Now the organization is sample log, then the space is Shedrack. And the last thing to do, which is specify the app name, is um is to basically specify the name of the app. The app, basically the name that Cloud Foundry will basically name your application and deploy it with. Cloud Foundry will also generate a route for you if you are it's generate a route for you where you can locate your application deployed based on the name of the application. So you can also have, if you're interested, if you want to do random route. So you need to generate a random route anytime that you make a deploy. There's also a flag called random out. Just adding a flag that's random route, and it will generate. It will always give you a random route all the time. Now, this after deploy is basically a script that would run after deploy, and I wanted to check CF apps physically to see all the apps that are running on my CloudFront cluster. Now, the way we can see if this works is to trigger a build. Now, there are two ways I can trigger a build. One is by pushing to the repo, to the to the repo basically, or I trigger a build form. There's a custom build feature, new feature that's still in beta though on Travis dashboard that can easily trigger a build, but I would not use that. I would just basically make a simple change to some part of the application and see, okay, let's say, so let's check the server.js and see if there's anything that we can change and just make a quick edit. So let's say provides node access to the node modules folder. So if I click on commit changes, when I click on commit changes, this should trigger a build instantly. So it takes a few moments. As you can see, a build has started. So now look at this. So when I click on this, I have both Travis and CircleCI running on this app on this repo. So I would show the CircleCI part later on. So if I should click on details here, it should show that GitHub Actions should show that okay, we have a Travis instance running and the configuration has started. Now, if I go here to the Travis dashboard, as you can see, the update that we've made, a build has been triggered and it's going to start the whole build process. It takes a few seconds to start. So we're going to wait for it to build. So as you can see, the CF password we created, that's the env file we created. The env file we created generally is exported into the environment so it can recognize it. So while this is deploying, I would come back to explain the whole deployment process. I would really quickly show you how the set in env file. So you go to the more options, go to settings, it takes you to the settings, then you can see environmental variables here. So it's a very simple thing to do. Just go to settings, you can see environmental variables, CF password, and this is the password. And if you want to add new env, you can just come here, write the env, and click on add, basically. So that's how to set an env file if you need to hide certain secrets. Now the deployment process is starting based on how we've specified it in our env file. So what Travis does first is to do the whole install Ruby and also install DPL. So DPL is basically like I said, is the software that handles deployments to various cloud providers that has been built by Travis. Now, the next thing here is to install the deployment dependencies. So install Cloud Foundry basically, and also install the version 7 of Cloud Foundry so we can have latest most of the updates to Cloud Foundry. The next thing to do here is to authenticate the deployment based on the password and the API that we've set, just like I did on my terminal. And next up is to set up the deployment, basically setting up a build environment for the deployment, so a Cloud Foundry environment. Now, the next thing is also to validate the deployment to see that, okay, this deployment is ready to go. There are no single errors and is ready to go. Then the next up is to prepare the deployment ready. And also after that is to run the application too. So the way Cloud Foundry does deployments is just a simple command, cf push, and the name of the application that we specified in the YAML file. So just a single cf push would basically take your app from your local your local machine from your GitHub repo, etc., wherever it is, and push it to your Cloud Foundry instance running on whatever cluster infrastructure that you're using. So it basically pushes the app, starts pushing the application, packages it, uploads the file via the Cloud Foundry API. Then the build process begins. Now, if you can see, there are also more environmental variables that are specified, like the API key, converter API key. So these are basically the app-specific env files that I've set for the application. Now, next thing to do is begin to push the app. So it will basically automatically recognize the language that was built with the application and begin to use what they call build packs. Ram will talk more about build packs. Ram is a build pack expert. It's not really my forte. Ram is a build pack expert. So Ram will talk more about build packs. They basically provide an application, a runtime environment for your application based on whatever language. So we use the Paketo build pack. So the Cloudfront for Kubernetes project uses the Paketo build pack to handle all build pack related issues. So the Paketo build pack is also is based on this cloud native build pack specification. So the build pack has to automatically recognize that, okay, this is a node project. So it begins to creates a node engine, starts npm install, npm starts to make sure that the application is running, then goes through the whole npm deployment process. So npm start, npm install, npm CI, etc. And also starts the application with server.js. I mean, we all start a node app with server.js here. So as you can see here, web node server.js. So this basically starts the application. Then it's after that, it basically starts the application and the app is like automatically deployed. As you can see here, your build exited with 1.0 done. You can see application requested states. This shows whether the application failed or started. As you can see here, it started. So routes, like I said, is is a unique link where we can find our application deployed live. And here is basically showing us the CPU usage, the memory, the disks, and more details about it. So if I should copy this, go into my browser and paste this and click on. And so, of course, because there's no SSL, Chrome will throw an error, so do not be alarmed. So as you can see, the application is deployed live. So on Cloud Foundry, it is basically deployed live. And so whenever I make a change to my app, it will automatically carry out a deployment process. Now, you can also there are various ways you can also specify which branch gets deployed all times. So you can say this particular Travis this particular process should run only during when it's on the master branch, when it pushes means to the master branch. So you can specify there's a Travis configuration file the way for doing that. We're not going to the details of that because that's really Travis specific. So there are ways of specifying, okay, this particular build should run only on master, it should run only on whatever branch you really want at all times. So that's basically how you can install, you can use Travis to deploy your applications at every single push or whenever you want to trigger a build to Cloud Foundry. And now to make sure that this is actually working, I would show you how to check that the app is really running in the terminal. So we did not use the terminal to do any deployment. So just to be sure that, okay, this is deployed, this is actually running, our app is on Cloud Foundry. If I run CF apps, it should basically, okay, we're having some, okay. So this is actually in network error. Weird. So this is basically a network error that happens like once in a while. And so hold on.
It's not a demo if something doesn't fail, shit, right? So
I know, right? So this is basically a network error. It has nothing to do with CF cloud or the whole deployment process. Our app deployed live, and as you can see, when we logged in, it deployed live, and it's working. So this is actually a network error that I do not.
yeah, you should just back off for a bit, and then maybe if you try in a few minutes, it'll show you what's going on. You
Yeah.
could show the output of the CF apps command on the Travis build post actions, though.
Oh, Travis cannot recognize the command apparently.
I see.
Hold. So your program saves. So I think whenever a push is made to Travis after the whole deployment process, Cloud Foundry gets deleted from the from
Okay.
the environment. Yeah, and the build is exited. So you cannot run after script that has to do with an external provider after a deployment. But when you whatever script you run that is in a Linux command, in Linux environment, by default, will always run. So yeah, that's pretty much how to use Travis. It's a very, very simple process, and I know a lot of people use Travis for running tests, for deployments, etc. So this is how you can easily integrate Cloud Foundry into your whole CI/CD pipeline without breaking anything. So you don't need to leave your existing CI/CD provider. You can just integrate Cloud Foundry very easily, and most of these providers actually have support for Cloud Foundry, so you are good to go. So that's the first part of the demo done, and over to Ram to show us a little bit of Jenkins magic.
Yeah, I think a couple of very interesting points that Shadrach brought up make a good case for Jenkins. You all might be wondering, why even bother with Jenkins? Isn't there like a Jenkins X that's more modern, that's more fancy, that's more Kubernetes native and things like that? Um, but Jenkins is like the tried and tested workhorse of the CI/CD world. So long before Travis existed, long before people had heard of CircleCI, Jenkins was the workhorse. Now, um, you might be a Jenkins person or a Hudson person, which is like, which in my opinion is like pretty much the same thing. You could be either, but I have had a lot of good experience in the past working with the Jenkins tool, and I know for a fact that a lot of teams still prefer Jenkins. Now, Jenkins is also open source, always has been. It has a fantastic community around the Jenkins tool, who continuously contribute what are known as Jenkins plugins. Um, so if you don't mind, Shadrach, I'm going to share my screen now.
Sure, sure.
Yeah. Uh, let's see. And share. So I was saying Jenkins is like the the historically most reliable CI/CD tool, and it's very convenient to use. So Jenkins has a lot of plugins, and it's sort of this plugin architecture that adds a lot of merit to what Jenkins can do. Even by itself, it's quite powerful, but the plugins just make it make it really worthwhile. Now I have a local instance of Jenkins running. Um, Now you could run this in very many ways. You could run Jenkins by itself on a VM and make use of that VM to do your deployments, which is like a very good practice. I have seen folks install Jenkins to a Kubernetes cluster, and that then starts to behave as a remote machine by itself. And then there's also so for purposes of this demo, I'm just running Jenkins locally. Now, one thing is just make sure that the machine on which you're running Jenkins is persistent and has a Cloud Foundry CLI also installed on it. In addition to that, there's a few plugins that we make use of. So the ones that I installed are the GitHub plugin, basically. So this allows us to make use of version control natively inside Jenkins, and I'll just quickly show you how in a minute. Um, so I'm going to create a new job and set up a pipeline. So I'm going to call it a live stream demo, and I'm going to select a freestyle project for purposes of this demo. So basically, it has the same steps, or it performs the same steps that Shadrach had shown as part of his Travis demo. There is a GitHub repo somewhere out there. That GitHub repo basically has the source code. That source code has to be converted into a container, and that container gets deployed to Kubernetes. In order to simplify this process and not worry about any of the stuff in the middle, our build process is going to take a very simple format. So we're going to execute like a bunch of shell commands. Now remember, because CF is already installed, I can just go ahead and run these commands. If you don't have CF installed, then you just have to make sure that you do. And then there are two things here. So when I say having CF installed, I mean have the CF CLI installed on the machine or virtual machine, or the have the container access, have Jenkins the container have access to CF along with it. The other thing is the CF for Kate's project that is running on the Kubernetes cluster somewhere. So you can, that's basically it. Now I will also activate K9S just to show some of the internals, just to prove that we're not like doing an April Fool's joke on the 1st of April, and Kubernetes deployments should not be this easy, right? So just want to give a feel of what that looks like. So as you can see, this is our K9S. Maybe I'll make this bigger. How? Yeah, hopefully that's big enough for folks to see. So this is the app that Shadrach had deployed just a little while ago. We can get into that and look at some stuff. Does it have any logs? Yeah, nothing on the logs for that. So anyhow, the only reason I opened this up was to show that eventually some stuff will begin to appear here. We'll take a look at what and how in just a bit. Now, the steps, like I mentioned, are going to be very similar to what Shadrach showed in his Travis demo. So you set the CF API. You basically direct the CF instance to log in with a username password that you will supply. CF target will be this org and this space. So CF target is basically the way we specify role-based access control and organize multi-tenancy on the CF cluster. And finally, the command that deploys the app to Kubernetes is CF push. Now, what is it that we are building? So we are going to build from a GitHub repo, and that GitHub repo is a test application. Yeah, that I've used a bunch of times. I'll be honest. So I am going to get this from Git. Okay. And then I'm going to get the master branch. I'm going to also paste that URL here. And yeah, so basically this is the build. Okay, so make use of that. I have a username password thing. Yeah, just make use of that. Username will be username, password will be password. So basically what this is my the credentials are already on Jenkins. Obviously I don't want to show my super secret password on a live stream to the world, but basically assign
Yeah,
these credentials
of
here
course.
and uh, give like a name that we can use. So this name is going to be repeated, is what is being used here, and this key is going to be used here, and they will get replaced when the build actually runs. So this is a very simplistic build at the moment. Um,
Yeah,
so just specify that we're using GitHub, and then do like a CF push. So I'm going to save this, and I'm going to try and run this now. So you can build on demand. Um, Jenkins allows you to do that. And let's take a look at the deployment. So my my git checkout, my git clone basically worked okay. um, CF API runs here, authentication happens here, so super secret username and password, and then the target is selected here, and then it starts to work on the actual deployment of the app. So the way build works, like Shadrach mentioned, is it uses what are known as Paketo build packs. Now, build packs are also like a fairly, I don't want to say old, but it's kind of what I mean. They're time tested. They've been used in a lot of environments. They've been um, they were pioneered by the team at Heroku at first, and then Cloud Foundry also, which was pivotal back then. Long history, but Cloud Foundry also adopted the build pack method of building apps. Um, and these build packs basically offer a very simple way in which it takes your application source, goes through a few defined steps. It's able to detect what language you're using. So for example, Shadrach used CF Push for his Node.js app, whereas I'm using CF Push for my Go application. And really, Cloud Foundry is able to make the distinction that, okay, that was a Node.js app, so make use of the packet of build packs that correspond to Node.js. And this is a Go application, so make use of the build packs that correspond to um, this Go application. So it generates like a URL for us at the end, and this is basically the app. So it is deployed to the Kubernetes cluster, and we can check that here. So if we look for CF workloads, there's going to be an app.
is it sample full RAM or test RAM?
Probably neither. Let me just check one second. Um, yeah, the namespace is CF workloads. Interesting. Even your app is missing.
Yeah, I know.
Uh,
I brought that down already.
oh, you brought it down. Okay.
Yeah, so we don't get billed by Google Cloud. a lot of
That's
money.
okay. That's okay. They've been kind enough to grant a lot of credits to us in the past.
Mm. Shout out to Google Cloud, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's do this.
It is not a demo if something does not go wrong.
Yeah, definitely isn't. My.
Can you
Yeah,
do a control F to find it based on the name?
Nah, I think it's Fu Ephraim. This is probably the one. Because like it's test app and it says hello on index 0, so this is definitely the app. But anyhow, so um, that's the app really, and uh, that's like a very simplistic way of doing a Jenkins based build and deploy that really goes out and deploys to Kubernetes. Now, if you want to make this slightly more sophisticated, so if you want to, let's say, build on every check-in or build on every commit or build and run some tests and things like that, so all of these things are available. So basically you can use the Jenkins URL, excuse me, to trigger something from GitHub. You can also poll GitHub from Jenkins, which is what I'm going to do here. And if you're if you are familiar with like cron style, then um, this takes cron style input. So my favorite way to um, learn about the cron expressions is crontab.guru. So these folks have made a wonderful resource about how you write your cron job. So what I have there right now is this. So every 2 minutes it will check for this. Now h/2 is like a Jenkins thing. Um, that just means that at whatever part of the hour, just check for any changes. So it'll run every other minute this way. And now if I go in and make a change to the app here, um, let's see, I make an edit here because I like to live dangerously. All right. So my commit message is some. All right. So I am committing changes to the master branch of test app. So here's my comment. And yeah, the this is the commit thing. And now in a couple of minutes or in a minute, this will refresh to 10:46. So and then it will kick off a build if everything has worked, and you'll be able to find that here. So let's just give it like a minute and see what it does. But basically the same, it'll go through the same steps. Um, Pick up on the changes, check those out. So on queue, it basically now has a new build. So it found like one change. Um, there is a revision and it just tries to build it. Unfortunately, that build failed. Yeah, so it's having some reliability issue with getting to the endpoint, but otherwise, the build should work. Yeah, we're um, going to back off for a bit, and see what happens. But yeah, basically it's going to work, and then we'll see the containers being spun up and work from here. So we can also check all the apps here. And yeah, this is the app that's running. And this is the one that got deployed. Try once again, maybe fourth time lucky. Yeah, so it's pushing. So it'll now go through the same steps of doing the Paketo build, generate the container, and take that container and deploy it into the Kubernetes runtime. So, like I mentioned, Paketo build packs do the actual job of converting the Go source code into the actual application code, into the actual container that runs. Um, so the whole sort of writing your own YAML files to maintain this, writing Docker files to create the container, writing some more YAML files to orchestrate the deployment onto Kubernetes, and all of these complications that I don't blame YAML for, but in general that are associated with Kubernetes, is sort of eliminated thanks to this project called CF for Kids.
So you're blaming Docker?
I'm not blaming anyone, for the record.
I mean, it's not it's not our live stream. We don't throw shots at XYZ.
Yeah. So yeah, so this is the project website. If you're interested in going through the source, CF for Kids is an open source project that is governed by the CF Foundation, who employ both Shadrach and me. And
Of
all
course.
of the information that you need is available on the CF for Kids website. So we just wanted to take this opportunity to show how two different tools with slightly different um, practices and purposes are able to basically provide a very simple experience in taking source code and having it run on Kubernetes. And making use of this method is definitely going to simplify things a lot. So there's just no doubt that this is probably the simplest way to deploy to Kubernetes, as in whatever experience that Shadrach and I have had. On the flip side, abstractions always scare people in terms of what sort of control they're giving over. The Cloud Foundry API and the Cloud Foundry developer experience itself is designed with like years and years of experience behind it. So it provides like a lot of granular options for being able to manage your apps and your deployment and things like that. Yeah, so two different tools, two different ways. Shadrach, could you just do like a very quick walkthrough, maybe of uh, what it looks like on CircleCI? It's very similar,
Yeah,
um,
yeah, yeah.
but
So
maybe
I
in the interest of time, something very quickly.
yeah. So I've had a back and forth with Ram on demoing CircleCI. So we we have a live stream coming up on the, I think, is it
Yeah,
27th, right?
the 27th of April. That's right.
27th of April with CircleCI. So I would be restricting a lot of information here just because of the live stream. So we do not have to, repeat the same thing in live stream. I actually initially didn't want to do the live stream here, the demo here, but Ram can be very, very persuasive. So let's get it done. So with CircleCI is basically very easy. It's basically the same thing, right? With Travis and also with Tengton. And let me share my screen. Now this is my CircleCI dev dashboard that I authenticated with my GitHub repo. So it basically shows all every single place that so every single repo that Travis CircleCI is activated. So if I come to projects here, it's going to show all the repos that CircleCI can be found on. So maybe a dot is YML file, the content dot CircleCI the YML, or a config.yml file. So yeah, you can just authenticate, then you also click on setup project. So when you click on setup project, it can, of course, it will automatically create a config for you that you can really write and then commit, and you are good to go. So that's basically the same process I did for this particular application. Now, how does CircleCI work with Cloud Foundry? There are two ways. I'll show you only one way. Then I'll show you the other on the other live stream. So at least I'm good. I'm fair enough, right? I'm fair enough. Now, so this way I'm going to show now is with the um with basically writing the deployment, the YAML file yourself, generally doing the whole deployment process by yourself, writing scripts to install Cloud Foundry, to install Cloud Foundry CLI, to log in, to authenticate, etc. That's what this particular step does. Now, if I go to this .circleci, the YML, then click on the config the YML file. So I'm just going to explain all of this real quick. Now, this is the first way to do it. The second way is to use the Cloud Foundry orb that has been created by CircleCI. If you want to find out about that, you will join the CircleCI live stream that we are going on the April 27th. So this gets the job done very well. So the first thing here is to create a job. I mean, there are jobs and workflows in CircleCI, and a job is basically an action, and a workflow is a combination of more than one jobs. So that's some CircleCI knowledge there. So the name of this job is install, login, deploy. You have to specify a name of the job. Now, I mean, CircleCI uses Docker images to do image the various image language specific deployments, etc. So you have to specify a Docker image. So I'm using a CIMG based stable image. So this is like a very it basically provides us with the Linux environment or something around that, and it's basically an image that does that. Now, the steps is basically a series of actions that should happen in that particular job. Now, the first step I want to happen is to check out. Check out in the sense that it should make our GitHub, the code in our GitHub repo available in that particular environment, in the CircleCI environment. If you do not specify this checkout, when it gets to the deployment phase here, it will not be able to push anything because there is no code, there's no code in that particular environment. So you have to check out at all times. Do not forget to check out. So now the next thing is to run. Basically, is to run a bunch of scripts. Now, this particular run stage is installing the CloudFront CLI. And if you want to write multi-line commands in CircleCI, you just add this particular symbol and you can write various. So you basically do the whole process of installing Cloud Foundry here and DPKG and also Cloud Foundry CLI. Now, you can easily do that by running all this, writing all this, and it to install. The next is to set up the Cloud Foundry CLI. That's the next step. The next step is to set up Cloud Foundry CLI. So when we run cf-v, this is basically checking to see the version of Cloud Foundry that is installed from this above step here. Then we go through the whole authentication process with skip API SSL validation, CF API, the whole process of basically logging into your Cloud Foundry instance with the Cloud Foundry CLI.
Everybody knows these steps by now.
Yeah.
This is the third time we are saying that.
No, when you say it often, it sticks, right? When you say it often, it sticks. So here I'm setting the environment variables for the app-specific environment variables. And the next is to run. The next step is to push the application to Cloud Foundry. So the only command I'm running here is the cf push exchange value. That's the name of the application. Then the workflow, specify the workflow name, Cloud Foundry, that's the name of the workflow. Then the job, install, login, deploy, the name we have specified here. So you have to make it a workflow, right? So when you do this, it automatically, sorry for showing you, it automatically starts a process. Now, I will show you that process by just rerunning the workflow from start. So if I should click on rerun the workflow, it's to start running the workflow again. So this is me rerunning on the cloud on the CircleCI dashboard without having to make a push to it, just like the way I can trigger builds on CircleCI. The build will also be triggered when you make a push. So the first thing it's doing is spinning up an environment, check out the code, like I said, you should check out the code, installing the Cloud Foundry CLI. Of course, it has installed the Cloud Foundry CLI. The next is setting up the CLI, the whole authentication thing. And the next thing is push the application to Cloud Foundry. So this is where the whole process of bundling the application and sending it over to Cloud Foundry via the Cloud Foundry API, and also setting the whole API key and their config. So the whole process generally, the whole process is specified, nothing too fancy, nothing too serious, nothing too difficult, very easy to plug Cloud Foundry into your, if you're using CircleCI for your CI/CD processes, it's very easy to basically include Cloud Foundry in your whole deployment pipeline or your whole CI/CD pipeline. So yeah, that's basically it. So we'll just wait for this to run and see it live. The second is to use the CircleCI Cloud Foundry hub, which we'll be talking about in the live stream we have with CircleCI. We have a live stream coming up with the CircleCI team on the 27th of April. More information would come on the Cloud Foundry official Twitter page, or on my Twitter, or Ram's Twitter. Coda_black and Ram. What's your Twitter handle?
If you are really a good friend and colleague, you will remember it.
Okay. Ram's
So
Twitter
I am
handle.
Ram Iyengar on Twitter at RAMIYENGAR.
So Ram is basically saying, I am not a good friend. Okay.
I didn't say that. You just inferred it.
Okay.
So, but yeah, again, the same set of build packs get called for the JavaScript code, and the container gets deployed to the container runtime on Kubernetes.
So yeah, this is actually the same process for most languages. So nothing changes really.
Cool. So for folks watching out there, if you have any questions, just feel free to drop them on social media, on the YouTube video that's going to remain. Just leave them as comments. We'll get to them when we can. Yeah, but that's it. Hopefully, this is of use for those who are watching. If you're wrangling with the idea of how to set up CI/CD pipelines on Kubernetes, or if you want to just provide a very clean developer experience for your developers, and also have a very simplified experience when using your dev tools, then Cloud Foundry is a great choice. With CF for Kates, we just extend that uh, Cloud Foundry simplicity and ease to managing Kubernetes clusters as well. CF for Kates works on top of all known Kubernetes providers. There's hardly any that I've come across where we've had trouble. Um, so feel free to install it, give it a spin, and let us know if you have any trouble at any point along the way, really. So thanks for joining us today. um, and yeah, just try and share this information with
Yeah.
anybody else who you think might benefit. So would really appreciate all the help
Yeah,
you
yeah, yeah.
get
And
in
so
reaching out to folks.
post Yeah, yeah. So post this live stream, we will have a bunch of videos that will replicate this bunch of steps that we've specified in this live stream on into a shorter video so that you can easily use it to as a tutorial. And we also have like a bunch of tutorials that a blog post if you are more of a reading kind of person that we've posted in like various places. For example, the Travis owned it on Container Journal, and you can find that on just check the Cloud Foundry official Twitter. You would see it on a Cloud Foundry official Twitter timeline, or you check my don't check my timeline. Definitely not find it. I tweet a lot. So yeah, thank you so much everybody for coming, and thank you Ram for doing this with me again. Been exciting so far, and we are looking forward to doing this more. The next time we are doing this, we are coming with more interesting stuff you can do with Cloud Foundry, more integrations, and hopefully we see everyone soon. Thank you so much for coming again. Bye, and have a wonderful rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, wherever
One
you are in
last
the world.
reminder though, there is a Cloud Foundry event that's
Oh,
happening.
yeah, the CF summits.
Yep.
Okay.
It's on July 22nd. It's a 2 day summit, fully virtual this year, like all other summits, I guess. But, an opportunity to learn a lot about Cloud Foundry, the ecosystem, interact with the community members. Um, and do reach out if you're interested in attending, but you can find the link from cloudfoundry.org under events. So if you're interested in learning about it and have the bandwidth to spend like a couple of days in exploring all of the options, I would highly recommend participating in the summit.
Yeah, same here. Always recommend it. Really, really fun sessions. You can learn so many things, really, really so many things. So thank you so much, everybody, and see you next time.